Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn something about migraine. Migraine is a very common disease, and you must have heard about it somewhere. Uh, it's a very small topic, and we'll cover it in single lecture video. Right. So basically, what is migraine? Migraine is a kind of headache. Right. It is a typical type of headache which occurs due to some specific etiology. Headache can occur due to so many reasons, right? So it may be due to migraine, it may be due to tension, it may be due to sinus. So the first thing is that every headache is not migraine. So as a physician, you need to diagnose that this is a migraine, and then comes the step of treatment, right? So what is the characteristic of migraine headache? That is the first thing. Here you can see this picture shows the type of headache and what can be the characteristic feature of that headache, right? So in case of migraine, here you can see it will be unilateral headache will be there, and specifically it will be throbbing, right? ગુજરાતીમાં કહીએ તો જાણે કે લબકારા મારે, that type, that is throbbing type of headache, and unilateral headache is the characteristic of migraine. Other headaches you can differentiate like this: the sinus headache, where it will be distributed at the sides of sinus, right? These are the sinus sides of sinus, so headache will be distributed at that side. Tension headache will be typically like a band type of headache, and it will pass on through from head to neck, right? From behind it will pass from head to neck, and band type of headache will be there. Cluster headache is a rare type of headache. The distribution area will be around the eyes, and it is said that cluster headache is due to some biological clock disturbance, right? So these are the types of headache. Today we are going to focus on migraine headache. First we'll see what is the pathophysiology of migraine, why it occurs, and then we'll see the treatment of migraine, right? So it's a definition that it is a neurovascular disease caused by neurogenic inflammation and characterized by severe recurring headache, right? So one-sided pain, as we already discussed, and it occurs more in women than in men, right? Okay. Now, before going to pathophysiology, we can divide migraine into two types, right? One is without aura and one is with aura. So in without aura, there will not be any kind of typically preceding symptoms, and directly migraine attack starts. It is a very common type, and it is seen in 70 to 80% of the patients. While in case of migraine with aura, there will be some typical symptoms will appear in the patients, followed by headache. So it may be visual, or it may be changes in visual field. There may be vomiting also, right? So there will be first vomiting, followed by headache, or there may be some visual disturbances followed by headache. So that is migraine with aura. It is also known as classical migraine, right? This is the classical migraine, while this is the common migraine. 78 to 80% ની અંદર common migraine હોય. So this kind of visual field defects can be seen by the patient, right? So initially patient will see this kind of visual defects, and that is followed by headache. So that is the classical migraine, but most commonly seen is the common migraine, where there is no any aura and directly the headache starts. Okay, now coming to the pathophysiology. Pathophysiology is important to learn the treatment, right? So here basically what happens, there are two things which are the prominent thing that occurs in migraine pathophysiology. One is vasodilatation of cranial vessels, and second is release of inflammatory mediators. These are the two prominent things which are important to treat the condition, right? So to understand this pathophysiology, again we'll have a one video that will give you clear idea about the pathophysiology. This video is from the YouTube itself by Sanjeevani Therapy Group, courtesy to Sanjeevani Therapy.
While the exact mechanism is not known, it is thought that migraine is caused by a genetic abnormality that makes the neurovascular system hyperexcitable. It may include cortical spreading depression, an electrical phenomenon that may start in the occipital lobe and move forward. Once antidromic activation occurs, the distal trigeminal nerve terminals initiate a cascade of events by releasing the neurotransmitter substance P, NKA, CGRP, and others, which bind to the receptors on intracranial blood vessels, causing vasodilation, plasma protein extravasation, and ultimately sterile inflammation. This results in reactivation of the trigeminal nerve, this time in an orthodromic fashion. This signal is relayed to the trigeminal nucleus caudalis, a central structure in the brainstem that forwards pain impulses to the thalamus and ultimately to the sensory cortex. Once the first-order trigeminal neurons become sensitized, normally innocuous intracranial stimuli, such as a pulsating artery, become painful, resulting in a throbbing pain made worse with activity. This type of pain is symptomatic of peripheral sensitization. If pain due to peripheral sensitization is unsuccessfully treated, second and third order neurons extending through the midbrain to the thalamus and cortex are continuously activated. This may lead to central sensitization, causing pain from cutaneous stimuli that are normally not painful. When central sensitization occurs, medications that act merely in the periphery often may not be effective. This has been a presentation of Valiant Pharmaceuticals North America.
Okay, so that was the video showing pathophysiology. So I hope you have understood two things. First, there will be some electrical activity within the nerves, that is known as neurogenic theory, and that electrical activity, which the reason for which may be unknown, that electrical activity leads to depression throughout the nervous system in that particular affected part, which is followed by vasodilatation, right? So and that vasodilatation occurs in carotid AV anastomosis, where there is a AV anastomosis is there and sinuses are there within the brain. So due to vasodilatation, what will happen? All the blood will get drawn into that sinus, right? So all the blood will get drawn into that sinus due to dilatation, and that will lead to cerebral ischemia. As first there is electrical depression, leads to dilatation of the sinus, and that sinus draws blood, and due to that there will be cerebral ischemia, and that gives rise to pain. And due to electrical stimulation, there are release of some inflammatory mediators that also give rise to pain, right? So that is the basic thing. So by understanding this pathophysiology, for the treatment we have two important things. First, you can constrict the vessels, right, by vasoconstriction, and second, we can inhibit this neurotransmitters, inflammatory mediators. By these two treatment targets, we can treat the migraine. Okay, so this particular figure is from H.L. Sharma. It shows the mechanism of action of drugs which are used to treat this condition, right? So we'll see this all in one by one according to the drugs. Okay, so drugs which are used, basically there are two main class of drug which are used to treat, we are specifically used for migraine, right? One is ergotamine and second are triptans. Other drugs are used, but they are you cannot say that they are anti-migraine drugs, right? So first is ergotamine. It is obtained from the fungus, and second is dihydroergotamine, right? The difference is that dihydroergotamine is given in injectable form while ergotamine is given in oral form, right? Ergotamine, it acts as a partial agonist, right? That is binds to 5-HT1D1B. Now this 5-HT, this is serotonin. Now this, by the study it has been revealed that this serotonin plays important role in the migraine pathophysiology, right? The neurotransmitters kida ema serotonin has important role. By agonizing this 5-HT receptors, it will produce vasoconstriction. So here in this figure you can see this is 5-HT agonist. So usually what happens to 5-HT2 receptor activation? There will be dilatation of cranial vessels and activation of trigeminal nerve in the meninges that stimulates sensory nerve and it will cause pain. So by agonizing 5-HT, this specifically 5-HT 1D 1B receptors, it will block this dilatation and it will produce a vasoconstriction which will give relief to the pain. So that is the mechanism of action. It acts by partial agonist to binding with the 5-HT 1D 1B receptors, right? As far as treatment status is concerned, ergotamine are not the first drug of choice because it has so many side effects like nausea, vomiting, right? And sometimes if given to the pregnant woman, it can cause contraction also of the uterus. So it is no more the drug of first choice. It is used only when triptans cannot be used. We'll see in the treatment part, management part, but this is ergotamine used in the treatment of migraine. Okay, second group is triptans, right? It is selective 5-HT1D 1B agonist. Ergotamines are a partial agonist while these are the selective 5-HT1D 1B agonist, and due to their safety profile they are safer compared to the ergotamines. They are the first choice nowadays, right? In case of, usually they are used in case of moderate migraine, that we'll see, but they are the first choice. There are two, sumatriptan and rizatriptan, both are available, right? And both by agonizing 5-HT 1D 1B, it will constrict the vasoconstriction, and that's why it will prevent the blood from drawing to the sinus, and that's how it will prevent cerebral ischemia and pain and all the subsequence that occurs. Okay, so that is, they both are very effective and very well tolerated. Mild side effects are there like feeling of head or paresthesia, dizziness, such kind of mild side effects can be there. And one more thing, other side effects which are common in both are due to vasoconstriction. It will cause constriction, vasospasm all over the body, means other vessels vasospasm will also be there. So especially in the high risk category patients, coronary vasospasm, so risk of MI can occur, right? So they are contraindicated in the patients with IHD, hypertension, like that, where spasm is not desired, right? So these are the two anti-migraine class, ergotamine and triptans, and important points about these two groups. Okay, so this is already we have discussed, right? These are the side effects. Okay, so considering these two groups, now coming to the management, how you will identify. We have seen the diagnosis, typical clinical picture, right? We have seen the pathophysiology and anti-migraine drugs, typical features of anti-migraine drugs. Now how will you manage, how you classify the patient of migraine, right? So we can divide basically into three types: mild, moderate and severe migraine. If patient is having less than or one attack per month, right? Means month ni andar less than or one attack aave, and if attack is lasting less than 8 hours, right, then we'll classify it as a mild migraine. So here in mild migraine you will not require anti-migraine drugs. They will be usually treated by aspirin, means NSAID class of drugs. Aspirin and acetaminophen will be sufficient enough, and if required you can go for other NSAIDs like ibuprofen, naproxen, diclofenac, mefenamic acid, indomethacin, right? And you can use combination as and when required. Now one more drug you can add in combination is the caffeine, right? Caffeine, you all know, it is very widely used in the form of tea and coffee, right? So you must have heard that by drinking tea and coffee the headache is relieved, right? So headache is relieved, right? So that is due to it produces vasoconstriction. So typically the patient is having migraine headache, then he or she can feel relief by taking tea and coffee. That is due to it produces vasoconstriction, right? So caffeine can be a part of treatment of migraine, especially in the mild attacks. Combination with the NSAID, it will give good result. If patient is having symptoms of vomiting, you can give metoclopramide, domperidone or chlorperazine antiemetics. Now moderate migraine. If patient is having more than one attack per month and it lasting for 6 to 24 hours, right? It can last up to 24 hours also. So 6 to 24 hours and it is intense, means more severe kind of headache, then we'll consider it as moderate migraine. Now here you will require NSAID to get combined with triptan or ergotamine. As I told earlier, nowadays the drug of choice is triptans rather than ergotamine. So usually NSAID with triptan, and if it not relieved by triptan, then you can go for ergotamine. According to the need you can add antiemetics, and if patient is having more than 2 to 3 attack, then you can go for prophylaxis. We'll see prophylaxis also, what are the prophylactic drugs. Then third we have severe migraine. If more than 2 to 3 attack per month and lasting for 12 to 48 hours and patient grossly incapacitated, means not able to perform his or her routine work, right, so much incapacitated, then it will be considered as severe migraine, where NSAID will not work. You have to give, you can give NSAID but will not definitely work. You have to give triptan or ergotamine with antiemetics if required, and definitely you will have to give prophylaxis for 6 months or more to prevent further attacks. So these are the three categories: mild migraine, moderate migraine and severe migraine. So classify the patient according to this category and treat accordingly. That is the criteria. Okay. And last thing to discuss is prophylaxis of migraine. So if patient is fitting into the category of severe migraine, fitting into the category of increased frequency of attacks of the migraine, you can go to the prophylaxis. There are specific class of drugs which are used for the prophylaxis, which will prevent the attack of the migraine, right? So here you have to take everyday medicines. So first class of drug is beta blocker. You have learned these drugs in ANS, right? Beta blockers, propranolol, nadolol, timolol, or are used. The exact mechanism, how it prevents exactly by vascular role or other role, it is still not known, but it works good, right? So it reduces the frequency by 50% to 60%, 50% in 60 to 80%. Means on the most of the patients the frequency of the attacks will be less than 50. मतलब पहला 8 attacks आता है, मतलब 4 थी जाए like that, right? So it reduce the frequency. Common side effects, the fatigue, sleep disturbance, hypotension, which are the usual side effects of beta blockers are there, right? But the drug of choice in case of beta blocker is propranolol, very commonly used in case of prophylaxis of migraine, non-selective beta blocker. Other group is tricyclic antidepressants, amitriptyline, nortriptyline, doxepin, they are used. Again here the mechanism of action may be due to its role in serotonin or any other role, it's not definitely known, but tricyclic antidepressants are used for prophylaxis. Other calcium channel blockers, verapamil, flunarizine. Verapamil usually take 8 weeks to show the good effect, right? So it will take long time, and side effects usually hypotension, constipation are there. Flunarizine, it is weak calcium channel blockers, and as well as it also also inhibits sodium channel also, right? So it is considered that flunarizine is better than verapamil for the prophylaxis of the migraine. It is considered that it is said that it is as effective as the propranolol, right? So as it is the cerebro selective calcium channel blocker, it is having less side effects also. So in calcium channel blockers, drug of choice is flunarizine. It is also very commonly used after propranolol. Most commonly used drug is flunarizine for the prophylaxis of migraine. Other drugs use anticonvulsants can be used, valproate, gabapentin, topiramate, but they are very less used because they have side effects like sedation and all that, so very commonly not used, right? One more is methotrexate. It is semi-synthetic ergot alkaloid from the ergotamine also. It has some side effects also, right? Muscle cramps, insomnia, so it is also not commonly used. In nutshell, for the prophylaxis from all these groups, most commonly used is propranolol from beta blocker and flunarizine from calcium channel blockers. These are the two commonly used drugs to for the prophylaxis of migraine, and usually for the 6 months, at least for the 6 months, you have to give prophylaxis, and then you can stop and see that further attacks comes or not. If further attacks continue, then you have to continue the prophylaxis. Otherwise, you can think stopping the prophylactic drug, right? So that is all about prophylaxis. We have seen pathophysiology of migraine, anti-migraine drugs, management of migraine, and prophylaxis of migraine. Hope you have learned something from this. We'll keep formative assessment within 1 day. Thank you.